So the Body Life Skills program is based on two charts that I've developed that are called the Fabric Behaviour Scale and the Fabric I Choose chart. The Fabric Behaviour Scale is based on the first two steps of what we say is step one is body and step two is life. But the I Choose chart is the one where real behaviour change comes, and that's based on the Fabric I Choose chart, where we teach people new skills to be able to respond to life. But let's first understand the Fabric Behaviour Scale, which I also call the Anxiety Scale, coming from the understanding that all unwanted behaviour is preceded by anxiety first. So this particular chart is a form of communication. It's about trying to identify the behaviours, words, thoughts and feelings that the body is using, the body is expressing to tell us how we're actually experiencing life. So at code blue on this scale, that's when the person is using behaviours that we would prefer to be using, what we might consider our wanted behaviours. And it's at that point that I say the person has what I call 80 to 100% perceived control over how they're experiencing life. And as we start to escalate up the scale, the person starts to have a perception that they're losing control over the way they're actually experiencing life. And as they go up even further, they've now got what I consider 40 to 60% perceived control. Up here, they feel like they've got 20 to 40% equipped to manage what's in front of them. And by the time we get to code red, that's when the person perceives that they have 0 to 20% perceived control over the way they're actually experiencing life. They don't actually feel like they've got the tools to manage what's in front of them. So from the body perspective, at code blue, that's when we say the person is using what we would consider as thumbs up behaviour. At code green, you can see here the words a little bit. That's when we start to experience a little bit of unwanted behaviours. It might be unwanted thoughts, it might be unwanted feelings, it might be unwanted words that are coming from the person's body, or unwanted words in the way of the tone, the volume, so on and so forth. But that first sign of unwanted behaviours, words, thoughts and feelings is just simply that person's way of communicating, hey, there's a part of life that's now being presented that I don't feel completely equipped to respond to. But often in life we typically ignore the body and we end up at code yellow. And when the person's at code yellow, that's when they've got here the word more. So there's more unwanted behaviours, words, thoughts and feelings. So by the time the person gets to code orange, that's when we're using the word a lot. There's a lot of unwanted behaviours, words, thoughts and feelings. The intensity has increased quite high at this particular point. And then when the person gets to code red, that's when we have meltdowns. Now the word meltdown is a word that we need to kind of just touch on a little bit, because this scale, one of the biggest errors that people can do is make it about comparison. They compare one person's code red with another. And if we take a person who has physically harmed another person at their code red, there's many people in the world who have never physically harmed another person. But that does not mean that they haven't made it to code red. It just means that the behaviours that they're using at code red are different to another person. And so we all have varying degrees of intensity of what our code blue, code green, code yellow, code orange and code red behaviour is all about. But in Fabric, or in the Body Life Skills program, what we're most interested in is developing a relationship with code blue. Because a lot of people don't actually identify or understand what their body looks like, sounds like, feels like, thinks like at code blue. If we can develop a marker of what code blue actually looks like, sounds like, feels like, then we can understand that as soon as we're no longer at code blue, it means we're away from code blue. So for me, the code green, the code yellow, the code orange and the code red behaviours all mean exactly the same thing. They're all sending me the same message. But typically in society we tend to ignore the code green and we typically ignore the code yellow. And we might start to register when we're at code orange and then we end up at code red going, how did we get here? Or how did that person get there? But the reality is our body is talking to us all of the time. Our body is telling us through our behaviours and words and thoughts and feelings exactly where it is on the scale. So what we need to do is, in the Body Life Skills program, is if we're using it for ourselves, we need to develop a relationship with our own body. And when we identify what our body feels like at code blue, then we have the smallest of triggers away from that tell us we're now higher than code blue. Or if we're observing the body of another person, whether that be in a school or a workplace or our family members or whatever it might be, we can observe what does their body look like, sound like, feel like when they're at code blue. And as soon as they're away from code blue, we just simply need to say, well, I wonder why. I wonder what's the part of life that person is perceiving loss of control over. So in summary of our body, we must always understand that the body and all of the behaviours, words, thoughts and feelings that come from it must never be judged, rather understood, because judgment and understanding cannot exist together. So as soon as we judge the body to be wrong, as soon as we judge any escalation to be wrong, we can never get to the understanding as to why that behaviour is actually happening. So if we see the behaviour, the words, the thoughts and the feelings that come from our body simply as a form of communication, then we can just be an observer of the body and not a judgment of the body.